The battle over the upcoming by-election in Gorton and Denton has, so far, been largely uneventful. The Labour Party, which holds the seat, looks set to lose it, as you'd expect. Their leader has, after all, the worst personal satisfaction ratings of any British Prime Minister since records began. Reform looks set to do well, which, with immigration dominating the political conversation, is also unsurprising. The Greens are also performing strongly and, like Reform, may even win the seat, for reasons I explained in my last video. So far, so predictable. But then, a video by Green candidate Hannah Spencer began doing the rounds. The clip itself is unremarkable. It wouldn't even be worth discussing if it weren't for one minor detail. It's delivered entirely in Urdu.
मेरा नाम Hannah Spencer है.
बिल्स बढ़ते जा रहे हैं, किराए हमें घरों से निकाल रहे हैं.
Now, you might be thinking, look how right-wing Konstantin has become. Why does anyone care whether a few unrepresentative areas have a lot of people from a particular community living there? After all, this tends to happen when groups of people move from country to country. People are not atomized individuals, especially in more traditional societies. British settlers who moved to the New World didn't move in groups of 3 either. A lot of immigration happens in clusters. It's why so many big cities have a Chinatown. I'm not against Chinatowns. Then again, I've never seen a British politician campaigning in Chinese. I'm aware, as I say this, that some American viewers might find it strange that I take issue with this. After all, there are many parts of the US where you'll get by just as easily with Spanish as you will with English. There's a big difference between Britain and America, as a British-born Pakistani Uber driver once explained to me in Los Angeles. British people aren't racist, he said. It's just space. Britain is a small country. America is a big country. When you move to America, you're not taking someone else's space. This reflects in the linguistic differences too. When you become an American citizen, you're called a first-generation American. When you become a British citizen, you're a first-generation immigrant. I'm not complaining. That's what I call myself because that's a cultural difference between Britain and America. This difference is partly caused by something else too. America displaced its native population and replaced it with waves of colonists from different parts of Europe and later immigrants from all over the world. With the exception of the people brought there against their will, they all effectively took the land from someone else. Whether your ancestors did the initial taking or moved there more recently, you still benefit from that land being taken by living on it. The native population of North America is dwarfed by the more recent arrivals. I say more recent and not recent because when it comes to land, someone always took it from someone else. With the exception of Australian Aboriginals, there are no people in the world who can claim they were the first modern humans to settle on land they currently occupy outside a handful of tiny, isolated island communities. Everyone else took the land they currently live on from someone else. And because Americans have a collective sense of being historically recent arrivals, it's just that much harder for them to deny other people the American dream their great-grandparents saw, provided they do it legally. As I've explained before, until very, very recently, Britain was a highly ethnically and culturally homogeneous society. Your opinion of whether that's good or bad is unimportant for the purposes of what I'm saying here. The fact is, in the lifetime of almost everyone alive today, London and other British cities have gone from being overwhelmingly populated by native Brits to being majority-minority. In 1991, 35 years ago, London was estimated to be 80% white British. By 2021, 30 years later, it was 36.8% white British. Over 75% of the country's population is over the age of 35. This dramatic change happened in the lifetimes of 3 out of 4 people in Britain today. And that's not a political statement, it's a fact. Forget about the skin colors and races of the people involved. When European settlers came to North America and within a couple of generations became the more populous people on the eastern seaboard of today's United States, on a scale from 1, dissatisfied, to 10, delighted, how happy do you think the natives were? Konstantin, you can't possibly compare the horrors inflicted on the native population of North America by a combination of brutal warfare, deadly European disease and forced displacement and ethnic cleansing, I hear you say. And you're right. No reasonable person would make that comparison. But say the colonists had moved to America because a handful of Native American leaders had welcomed them in despite the repeatedly expressed wishes of their citizens. Britain, after all, voted against mass immigration in 2010, 2015, 2016 with Brexit, 2017, 2019, and 2024 when they punished the Tories for letting immigration spin out of control. So in our example, say there was no war, no violence, and the displacement happened entirely peacefully and without coercion. Would you concede that in that situation, quite a lot of Native Americans might have a few questions about whether their leaders made a better decision than the one they elected them to make? This is why I didn't agree with Sir Jim Ratcliffe using the word colonization to describe what's happened in Britain. But it's also why I refuse to criticize him for it. Like all of us, he's trying to feel his way towards the right word to describe what's happened in much of Europe in the last few decades. It's hard because what's happened is completely unprecedented. Never in the history of our countries have our rulers decided that opening the borders to so many people from the rest of the world was a good idea. Indeed, at any other point in human history, the suggestion that we should pursue this course of action would have been met with bemusement, to put it very, very mildly. It's happened in a very short period of time, and not only without the consent of the British people, but in direct contravention of their wishes. Words like invasion and colonization, which the edgelordy wing of the internet is so fond of using, sound like the people your anger is directed at are the immigrants themselves. This is why the Be Kind Brigade keep claiming that people with concerns about immigration are demonizing immigrants. But 95% of the anger I see is directed at the people who did this, British politicians of all three major parties. I don't hate other people for wanting to come here. Britain is wonderful. Why wouldn't they? I don't even hate the politicians who've done this. Some of them, at least, have the excuse of being incompetent and naive. But the people I am starting to hate are the liars and the hypocrites who want to have it both ways. If you say that too many people in Britain don't speak English, live in a parallel society, and don't integrate, you'll be shouted down and called names by the very same people who are campaigning in a foreign language. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Either multiculturalism is all hunky-dory, diversity is our greatest strength, and if only the great unwashed would stop grumbling about immigration, the kind, decent, welcoming Gardenistas of North London could finally live peacefully and glorious citizen of the world harmony, or you have to concede that there are parts of the country where if you want to reach voters, you have to speak their language, not the language of our country. Many of the people who defend the policy of mass immigration are only doing it because they suffer few of the consequences and reap many of the benefits. That's a perfectly rational thing for them to do. If a policy benefits you more than it harms you, it's a good policy. For you. But as Argentinian President Javier Milei once said in his characteristic style, we can all be whores with someone else's ass. If mass immigration is good for you, fine. Can you at least stop making the rest of the country pretend it's good for them too and calling them names if they refuse? If you enjoy these videos, remember they're available on my Substack days, weeks, sometimes months ahead of time. So head on over to konstantinkisin.com and subscribe. Most people think they're informed. In reality, they're selectively informed. Modern media doesn't just tell stories. It quietly decides which ones you never hear about at all. That's why I use Ground News. It's the only app that compares how the same story is covered across the political spectrum and show you what whole audiences are not being told. The blind spot feed is one of my favorite features. Every day, it flags upwards of 20 stories that are being ignored either by the left or the right. Follow along at ground.news/trigonometry. Take this story. A major US poll found that Republican voters' confidence in Trump's economic leadership has dropped sharply during his second term. That is not a minor data point. If you only read right-leaning publications, you would have missed this completely. On the other hand, look at this. The UAE drops UK from scholarship list over radicalization concerns on university campuses. That's a significant story. Yet, coverage from left-leaning outlets was almost non-existent. Ground News puts all of this in one place. Headlines, bias breakdowns, ownership, and context. So you can actually understand what's going on, not just react to what you're told. Go to ground.news/trigonometry to get 40% off their unlimited Vantage plan, the same one we use, and stop being managed by the media.